Hey guys, it's Andrew from Discover Canada Tours, and we're in our last episode of Canadian Skills 101. Today, I'm going to teach you how to fly fish. So today, I'm going to teach you the basics about fly fishing. I'll show you some rods, some reels, some leaders, some flies, and finally the little knickknacks that you need before you go fly fishing. So down here, I've got 3 rods with me. I've got a 3-weight, a 5-weight, and a 9-weight. Now you can get rods anywhere between a 1-weight all the way up to a 14-weight rod. So the reason I have these 3 rods is they're quite specialized for different things. This little 3-weight over here is the perfect rod for fishing small streams and dry flies. 5-weight, pretty much your go-to. You can fish trout on it, you can fish some light bass on it. It really is the most versatile rod out there. This 9-weight rod out over here is the rod that we're going to be using today. Now typically you'll use a 9-weight rod for saltwater fishing, but you can also use it for really big pike fishing and some of your larger game species. So here in Canada we are really spoiled in terms of the fish life and the amazing fisheries across the country. From the east coast there's striped bass and there's some steelhead that run into some of the lakes in Ontario. The interior, Saskatchewan, Manitoba has some of the best pike fishing in the world. There's also a large lake trout population in the interior. And then coming into BC, I would say, maybe I'm biased, but I'd say this is kind of the holy grail of fishing in Canada. We have 5 salmonoid species that run here. It's the coho, the sockeye, the chinook, or known as the king salmon, chum salmon, and pink salmon. Now each of these salmon run every year except for the pink salmon, which run in odd years. So that they ran last year in 2019, so they'll run again next year in 2021. Today where we are, we've got a bunch of coho salmon that are stacking up in front of the Capilano River mouth, and we're going to try and go after them today. So I have a selection of reels down here as well that we'll have a look at in a second. Now you have to match your reel to the weight rod that you have. So what is weight, you ask? Weight is actually the weight of the line. So I've got the lightest rod I've got is a 3-weight. So I've matched one of my reels with 3-weight lines. Now these 3-weight lines are a lot lighter than, say, for example, a 9-weight line. And it just comes down to how much the rod can load. So you're going to need to match your reel with your rod, and we've got a selection of reels down here. I've got this one over here, the Shilton CR2. This reel is specifically for my 3-weight rod. I then have a CR3, which is matched to my 5-weight rod. I've got a Shilton SR9 over here, which is my saltwater or 9-weight reel. So fly fishing can be a fun sport. You know, it is quite expensive as a start out. If you are really keen on just learning a little bit about fly fishing, you can pick up a rod from Cabela's, a rod and reel combo. They range between $100 and $150. And the price just gets exponentially larger from that. So one of the most expensive rods that are on the market off the shelf at the moment is a rod by Thomas & Thomas. It's a split cane bamboo rod, and you're looking at about $5,000 US just for that particular rod. Now these rods down here are Thomas & Thomas rods as well, and you're looking at about $800 US a rod over here. These reels that I've got on the side over here, these Shilton reels, these retail for about $500 or $600 US a piece. So as you can see, fly fishing can become an incredibly expensive sport, but it doesn't have to be in the beginning. Where the hook is, and no pun intended, with fly fishing is when it comes to buying flies and your tackle along the way. Once you buy one fly, you generally buy a bunch of them and you try them all out. So once you have your initial setup, you're pretty much good to go, apart from getting the leaders, which is what I've got over here. This is a Trout Leader. As you can see, it says 5X on it, and it's rated to 5 pounds. Now, when you're fishing for the big and salmonoid species, you'll generally use something like this. Now, this is a Maxima Ultra Green. This is a 15-pound rated or 7-kilo rated leader. Now, with this and the salmonoid species, because you're turning over heavy flies, you can just make your leaders straight from this. Whereas with your Trout Leaders, these are actually called Tapered Leaders, and it just helps you turn over your line a lot easier when you're casting. This is the last little thing that you need for trout fishing specifically, not so much for saltwater or the river salmonoids fishing. This is called tippet. Now you'll generally make your leader a little bit longer. Trout can be incredibly line kind of scared or wary where with the salmon they're not quite as wary, especially when they're fresh. So this is another core thing that you need to have. So this is my fly box at the moment. It's a little bit messy, as you can see, but this basically here covers my trout flies. On the other side, I have some salmon flies that you have for when you're in the river. So when the fish are actually in the capilano, you'll use a fly like this. It's really nice and bright, and they really do attack this fly quite hard. So as you can see here, I've just got a few pink flies. Now these are really good for the coho. You can see that there's a bit of flash over here. This flash will hit the light in the water will hit it, and it really attracts the fish. Now the reason we go for pink flies around here is a lot of the coho that are coming out of the ocean, just here to the right and into the Capilano River, is they're feeding on little shrimp and little krill. So that's why we go for the pink pattern, and this little bit of flash really attracts them to it. So all the flies in this box over here were tied by myself and my wife. There's nothing better than catching a fish on your own tied fly. Now these aren't the prettiest flies in the world, but I'm pretty confident that they will be catching something along the way. Okay, so there's just a few little nicks and knacks that you're going to need before you go fishing. Most important thing is this, a hat. So you can see this hat, it's got a black underside to the peak. Now the reason for that, it helps reduce the glare coming off the water. So when looking for a hat to go fishing, make sure it's got a black underside to the peak. The second thing is a buff. This is your friend when it comes to fishing. When the glare comes off the water, the UV rays can really burn you. So this is great just to cover your face, your neck, and if need be, you can use it as a headscarf as well. Another thing to do, sunscreen. Very important. Now with sunscreen, you've got to be very careful that you don't get it on your hands. So that's why these spray bottles are great. The reason you don't want to get it on your hands is it gets onto your line. If it gets onto your line, it can damage your line, but it can also compromise your fishing on that day. And finally, this is not an essential, but it is something good to have. It's a really good set of polarized sunglasses. So these polarized sunglasses take the glare off the water and actually allow you to see deeper into the water and very often spot fish where they are, specifically within the rivers. Finally, the last thing you want is a long sleeve shirt. Now you can see I'm wearing our flannel today, but very often when I fish, I use Columbia specific fishing gear, and they just very lightweight, but there are 50 UV protection. You can get really badly burnt when you're out on the river, especially on a day like this where the sun is blazing. Now the last thing you're going to need is a good net. Now this is very much a trout net. You can see that's fairly small in this side of things, but it is really portable, so you can carry it a lot. When handling fish, you have to be incredibly careful. Don't ever pick a fish up by its gills. Don't put a fish down on the ground. Only bring it up out of the water to take that quick photograph before releasing it. You really want to fight the fish for as little time as possible and get it back into the water as quickly as possible. So having a good net allows you to land that fish, get that photo, and let that fish get back into the water. So when it comes to fishing, you really need to learn your knots. Now there are a couple of knots that are your staple, and then there are a couple of knots that you just need to know along the way. This particular knot is just one you need to know along the way. It's called a perfection loop, and this will allow me to attach this, which is going to be my leader, to my fly line at the end of the day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass the line behind, and you leave a bit of a tag end. So you pull the line behind, you leave a tag end. You pull it around, so you've made a double loop over there. You then put that line, this little bit of line, you put through and you pinch it, and then you pull the inside smaller loop. And what it does, it creates a locked knot. So you can see I'm putting a lot of pressure on this knot at the moment, and it's not breaking. So this is a critical knot to learn. So fly rods typically come in 4 pieces. That's not to say all of them do. You do get 2-piece fly rods. That's very often the bamboo and cane fly rods. You do also get some 6-piece fly rods, which are very much for travel, but they're also very specialized. Your run-of-the-mill general fly rod will come in 4 pieces. So first, you have your butt section. This is made out of cork. You can see that this has got a cork base. Any rod over 5 weight has a cork base, and it's got a dual locking system over here for your reel. And this is where you get all of your power when it comes to casting and landing a fish. You then have 2 more sections over here that come up, and then finally you have your tip section. Now when you do this, there's a trick to putting a rod together. So you can just put all the pieces together and that goes fine. But what you do is you get something called ferrule wax. You just wax it onto your ferrule, and it just helps set the rod in. It also helps you release it. If you don't have any ferrule wax, all you do, rub your nose, and just those little bit of residue oils that are there on your face, you put it in there. Oops, I got a very shaky hand. And then you line it up. Now you have to line up the rod pretty well. So you can see over here I've got a dot on my rod, and that dot has to match the first guide. So you go in there, you do that, and then you push down. You give it a firm push down so that it sets the rod quite nicely. Same thing for the next section. A little bit of the ferrule. You then go in, line up your guides, and give it a click in. You then do it one last time, up on the tip of the rod. You go in, drop it in there, line everything up, and give it a little push in. So the next thing you need to do is you need to put your reel onto your rod. So on all rods, there's a little guide over there at the base of the rod. You put that in. At the bottom, you drag it up, and there's another little guide in over there. Always get it. And then you lock it in like that, and then you just switch these up, and you lock your reel in place. So that reel is not coming out at all. That reel is firmly put in there. Next thing you'll do is run your line through all the guides. I'm not going to show you guys how to do it. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but you'll get it all the way up to the tip, and it will come all the way down again. Next part is just getting your fly onto the line. So you feed it through the eye of the hook. Now I'm just going to do an improved clinch knot today, but there are 4 or 5 different methods of tying it on. What you want to do, you want to get your tag end in that. You grab your fly, you roll it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm using only 5 twists because this is quite a heavy Maxima line. If you on trout, you'll generally go 8 twists. So I'm going to put this into here, get that there, and then I'm going to grab my little loop, and I'm going to put, I'm going to put my tag end through the loop, pull it, get it tightish, then you lick it. The lick is very important so that the friction of the line doesn't burn, and then you just pull it down. And you can see it's now seated nice and tight, and that hook is going nowhere. What you're going to do then is just clip off the little tag end, and then you have your setup ready to go. So we've got our rod set up, we've got our hook on there, and we're ready to go. But wait, I seem to be missing something. What about this? Yeah, that's much better. I'm going to stay dry and warm in the river today. So typically when you're fishing here, you'd expect that this is the river running into the ocean here. And typically you'd expect the water to be flowing that way. But if you actually look at my line over here, the water's going back into the river over here. And that's because we've just hit low tide and we're on the way back up to high tide. So the retrieve I'm going to use today is a simple figure of 8 retrieve, nice and slow, and just let the fly drift up the river. That's going to be my tactic for today. There's salmon fry over here. There's fish jumping, so they may be here already. So one of the main reasons that I fly fish is I find it very meditative. Very often I'll actually just go and fish and not expect to catch any fish. It's just really about the action of casting, going through the motions, your back cast, waiting for the line to fill out, get that D coming in again, go for your forward cast. It's very, very meditative. So for me, a good day fishing isn't necessarily a day where I catch. So that's it for this episode, and sadly, that's it for this season. This is episode 10. We've had a fantastic ride throughout, learning how to build campfires, how to make s'mores, how to pack for the Rockies, and many, many more. Now this is only season 1, and we are going to be back with season 2. So be sure to keep an eye out on our YouTube channel, follow us, like us, and by all means, share all of our videos. From everyone here at Discover Canada Tours and West Trek Social Club, goodbye.